Kang Do-yun wiped the sweat from his forehead as he finished welding the broken support beam on mining platform 7 at 73 years old. His hands still moved with the steady precision that had made him the best engineer on Kepler 442b. Stationed for the past 40 years. The mining platform floated in the darkness of space, surrounded by countless asteroids that sparkled like distant stars. Another day, another repair? Do-yun muttered to himself. He had been talking to himself. More often lately. Living alone on the outer rim of known space did that to a person. The other crew members were friendly enough, but they were all much younger. They had families waiting for them back on Earth or the inner colonies. Do-yun had nowhere else to go. His wife Minji had died 5 years ago from a sickness that the station doctors could not cure. His son worked somewhere in the inner colonies now, but they rarely talked. The boy had wanted his father to retire and move closer to civilization. Do-yun preferred the quiet of space and the honest work of keeping machines running. The sensor alarm on his repair tool started beeping. Do-yun frowned and checked the readings. There was something out there in the asteroid field about 2 kilometers away. The energy signature was unlike anything he had seen before. It was not radioactive or dangerous, but it was definitely not natural. "Control, this is Do-yun on Platform 7, he said into his communication device. "I'm picking up an unusual reading from Sector 12. "Copy that, Do-yun," came the voice of Kim Tae-young from the communications center. "What kind of reading?" "Unknown. Energy source, not harmful, but definitely artificial." "Should I investigate?" There was a pause. Then Commander Lee Hyung-woo's voice came through the speaker. "Negative, Do-yun. Finish your repairs and return to base. We'll send a proper survey team tomorrow." Do-yun looked at the readings again. The energy signature was beautiful in its complexity, like a song written in mathematics. His curiosity got the better of him. "Understood, Commander. Do-yun out." He finished his work quickly and powered up his small repair shuttle. The flight to the asteroid took only 10 minutes. As he got closer, his instruments went crazy with readings. The asteroid was only about 50 meters across, but it was made of some kind of crystallized carbon that he had never seen before. It glowed with a soft blue light. Embedded in the crystal was an egg. Do-yun had never seen anything like it. The egg was about the size of his torso, with a surface that seemed to shift and move like liquid metal. Patterns of light danced across its shell, creating designs that looked almost like writing from some ancient language. The egg was warm to the touch, even through his spacesuit gloves. Against every rule in the station manual, Do-yun carefully cut the egg free from the crystal and loaded it into his shuttle. He told himself he was just securing it for the survey team. But deep down, he knew he was lying. Something about the egg called to him, like it was meant to be found by him specifically. Back at the station, Do-yun smuggled the egg into his personal quarters. His rooms were larger than most because of his seniority, and he had converted part of the space into a workshop. The egg fit perfectly on his workbench, nestled between his collection of engine parts and half-finished projects. Dr. Park Ji-won stopped by the next morning. She was the station's xenobiologist, a smart young woman who studied alien life forms. She was also one of the few people on the station who still visited Do-yun regularly. "You look tired," she said, accepting a cup of coffee. "Did you sleep at all last night?" Do-yun had spent most of the night staring at the egg, but he could not tell her that. "Just thinking about retirement," he lied. Maybe the boy was right. Maybe it's time to move to one of the inner worlds. Ji-won studied his face carefully. She had known him for 3 years and could usually tell when he was hiding something. "You found something out there yesterday, didn't you?" Before Do-yun could answer, Security Chief Cho Sun-hee entered his quarters without knocking. She was a tough woman in her 40s who took station security very seriously. "Do-yun, we need to talk," she said. "The commander wants to know why you took a detour yesterday. Your shuttle's navigation log shows you went to Sector 12. "I was investigating the energy reading I reported," Do-yun said calmly. "Just wanted to make sure it wasn't dangerous." "And?" Sunhee crossed her arms. Just a strange asteroid, nothing important. Sunhee looked around his quarters, her eyes scanning for anything unusual. The egg was hidden behind a pile of equipment manuals on his workbench. The survey team found traces of energy discharge in that sector. Something was removed from an asteroid. Maybe space pirates, Do-yeon suggested. They've been active in this region lately. After Sunhee left, Ji-won stayed behind. Show me, she said simply. Do-yeon hesitated, then moved the manuals aside. Ji-won gasped when she saw the egg. The patterns of light were more active now, pulsing in a rhythm that almost seemed like a heartbeat. Do-yeon, this could be incredibly dangerous, Ji-won whispered. Unknown alien artifacts have been known to carry diseases or worse. Some of them are weapons. It's not a weapon, Do-yeon said with certainty. Look at it. Really look at it. Ji-won moved closer to the egg. The light patterns seemed to respond to her presence, becoming brighter and more complex. It's beautiful, she admitted. But beauty can be deadly. Remember the crystal flowers of Vega Prime? They were gorgeous until they started dissolving. People, this is different, Do-yeon insisted. I can feel it. This thing isn't meant to hurt anyone. Over the next few days, word spread around the station that Do-yeon was acting strangely. He spent all his free time in his quarters, talking to himself more than usual. Technician Yu Jisu, who managed the station's computer systems, noticed that Do-yeon had been checking out books about mythology and ancient legends from the digital library. Navigation. Officer Shin Jae-in was worried enough to mention it to Commander Lee. The old man's been through a lot, Jae-in said. Losing his wife, being isolated out here for so long. Maybe he needs to talk to someone? Meanwhile, Do-yeon found himself spending hours each evening talking to the egg. He told it about his life, about Minji, about the son who had grown distant. He explained how machines worked and shared stories about the strange things he had seen during his decades in space. The egg seemed to listen. The light patterns changed in response to his voice, becoming calm during sad stories and excited during tales of adventure. Sometimes Do-yeon imagined he could feel emotions coming from the egg, as if something inside was trying to communicate with him. 3 weeks after finding the egg, Do-yeon was working late in his quarters when he heard a soft cracking sound. He looked up from his repair work to see a hairline fracture running down the side of the egg. The light patterns were more intense now, pulsing rapidly like an excited heartbeat. It's time, isn't it? Do-yeon whispered to the egg. Whatever you are, you're ready to come out. The crack widened and more fractures appeared. A soft humming sound filled the air, like the song of distant whales. Do-yeon sat down in his chair and waited, his heart pounding with anticipation and fear. The egg split open with a sound like breaking crystal, and something extraordinary emerged into the world. The creature that emerged from the broken egg was unlike anything in any database across known space. It was small, about the size of a house cat, but moved with a grace that seemed impossible. Its body was long and serpentine, covered in scales that shifted color from deep green to bright silver as it moved. The creature had 4 legs with delicate claws, and its head was elegant with large, intelligent eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of ages. Do-hyun sat perfectly still, afraid that any sudden movement might frighten the newborn being. The creature looked around the workshop with curiosity, its eyes taking in every detail. When its gaze finally settled on Do-yeon, the old engineer felt something he had never experienced before. It was like a warm touch inside his mind, gentle and questioning. "Hello there, little one," Do-yeon whispered softly. "Welcome to the world." The creature tilted its head, studying him with those ancient-looking eyes. Then it did something that made Do-yeon's heart skip a beat. It smiled, not with its mouth, but somehow Do-yeon could feel the creature's happiness and contentment flowing into his mind. "You need a name," Do-yeon said, slowly extending his hand. "How about Hanyul? It means sky in my language." The creature approached cautiously, sniffing at Do-yeon's fingers before gently pressing its small head against his palm. The moment they touched, both of them felt a connection form that was deeper than words. Do-yeon understood immediately that this was no ordinary animal. This creature was intelligent, perhaps more intelligent than humans. Haniel made a soft chirping sound that somehow conveyed hunger. Do-Yan looked around his workshop, wondering what a newborn alien creature might eat. His eyes fell on a small piece of refined titanium alloy that he used for special repairs. "I don't suppose you eat metal?" he asked, joking. To his amazement, Haniel's eyes brightened with interest. The creature approached the metal sample and sniffed it carefully. Then, with delicate precision, it began to nibble on the titanium. The metal seemed to dissolve at the creature's touch, absorbed rather than chewed. "Well, that's going to be expensive," Do-Yan muttered, but he was smiling. Over the next few days, Do-Yan discovered that Haniel had very specific dietary needs. The creature preferred rare metals and exotic minerals, the kind used in advanced starship construction. Fortunately, the mining station had access to these materials, and Do-Yan began sneaking small samples to his quarters. Dr. Park Ji-won noticed Do-Yan's improved mood immediately. "You seem happier," she observed during one of her visits. "Did you finally decide about retirement?" "Something like that," Do-Yan replied, carefully positioning himself to block her view of Haniel, who was sleeping curled up behind his computer terminal. Ji-won was too observant to be fooled for long. "You're hiding something," she said. "And whatever it is, it's making strange readings on my biological sensors every time I'm near your quarters." Before Do-Yan could respond, Haniel poked its head up from behind the terminal. Ji-won gasped and took a step backward. "Do-Yan, what is that thing?" "This is Haniel," Do-Yan said calmly. "And before you start panicking, just observe for a moment." Haniel seemed to sense Ji-won's fear. The creature moved slowly, keeping its posture low and non-threatening. It approached her carefully and made a soft, musical sound that somehow conveyed peace and friendship. Ji-won stared at the creature in amazement. "It's trying to communicate with me," she whispered. "Haniel is very intelligent," Do-Yan explained. "I think this species might be naturally telepathic." Over the following week, Ji-won began visiting regularly to study Haniel. She ran discreet scans and tests, always with Do-Yan's permission and Haniel's cooperation. What she discovered was extraordinary. "Its neural structure is incredibly advanced," she told Do-Yan in private. "The brain shows patterns I've never seen before. It's like its mind is designed to interface with complex systems." "What kind of systems?" Do-Yan asked. "Technology, computers, maybe even spacecraft." As if to prove her point, strange things began happening around the station. Technician Yujisu noticed that the main computer was running more efficiently than it had in years. Systems that used to crash regularly were now working perfectly. The station's artificial intelligence seemed sharper and more responsive. "It's like something is optimizing our networks," Jisu reported to Commander Lee Hunwoo. "All our systems are performing above normal parameters." Navigation Officer Shin Jae-in made an even more startling discovery. "Commander, our communication arrays are picking up signals we've never detected before. It's like our equipment has suddenly become more sensitive." Commander Lee was puzzled by these improvements, but he was not one to complain about better performance. Security Chief Cho Sun-hee, however, was suspicious. She began investigating what might be causing these changes. Meanwhile, Haniel continued to grow at an incredible rate. Within 2 weeks, the creature had tripled in size and was now as large as a medium-sized dog. Its intelligence seemed to be developing just as rapidly. Haniel began to understand human speech and started communicating through a combination of mental impressions and harmonic sounds. Through these communications, Do-Yan learned fragments of Haniel's heritage. The images that came into his mind were unclear but powerful. He saw vast fleets of ships moving between stars, creatures like Haniel working alongside other species to build incredible technologies. He sensed a great civilization that had existed long ago, proud and powerful, but also wise and protective. "Your people were explorers," Do-Yan said to Haniel one evening. "They traveled between worlds, didn't they?" Haniel's response was a wave of sadness mixed with pride. The creature showed him mental images of empty worlds and silent star systems, as if a great civilization had simply vanished from the galaxy. What happened to them? Do-yun asked gently. The answer came as a feeling rather than images. Loss, sacrifice, a choice made to protect something precious by giving up. Everything else. Dr. Jiwan's research revealed more about Hanyul's unique abilities. Its scales contain microscopic structures that can manipulate electromagnetic fields, she explained to Do-yun. When it touches electronic equipment, it can interface directly with the systems. Is that why our computers are working better? Do-yun asked. Probably. Hanyul seems to instinctively optimize any technology it encounters. It's like its species evolved specifically to work with advanced machinery. This discovery worried Jiwan. Do-yun, if word gets out about Hanyul's abilities, every military force in the galaxy will want to capture it. This kind of technology could change the balance of power completely. Do-yun felt a protective surge toward his unusual companion. Then we won't let word get out? But keeping secrets on a small space station was nearly impossible. Security Chief Sunhee had noticed the correlation between Do-yun's strange behavior and the station's improved performance. She began watching him more carefully. The situation became more complicated when long-range sensors detected ships approaching the station. Navigation Officer Jayan identified them as vessels from the Hegemony, a military alliance known for its aggressive expansion policies. They're requesting permission to dock, Jayan reported to Commander Lee. They say they're conducting a routine inspection. Commander Lee frowned. The Hegemony rarely conducted routine anything. Their presence usually meant trouble. How long until they arrive? He asked. 6 hours, sir. Do-yun overheard the announcement and felt a chill of fear. He looked at Hanyul, who had grown large enough to barely fit in his quarters. The creature seemed to sense his worry and pressed against him comfortingly. We need to keep you safe, Do-yun whispered to his friend. Something tells me these visitors wouldn't understand what you are. Hanyul's response was a wave of determination mixed with loyalty. The creature would not hide if it meant putting Do-yun in danger. Through their mental link, Do-yun felt Hanyul's growing strength and confidence. The young dragon was no longer the helpless hatchling that had emerged from the egg. As the Hegemony ships approached, both Do-yun and Hanyul sensed that their peaceful time together was about to end. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The bond between the old engineer and the young dragon had grown strong enough to weather any storm, but neither of them could imagine how completely their lives were about to change. The Hegemony fleet arrived exactly when predicted, casting dark shadows across the mining station as their massive ships moved into position. Commander Lee Hyun-woo watched from the control center as 6 heavy cruisers and 1 enormous dreadnought surrounded Kepler 442b station like predators circling their prey. This is Admiral Voss Kelrin of the Hegemony Third Fleet, came the transmission. The voice was deep and harsh, belonging to one of the warrior species called the Thrakari. Prepare for immediate boarding and inspection. Any resistance will be met with overwhelming force. Commander Lee activated the station's communication system. Admiral Kelrin, this is Commander Lee of Mining Station Kepler 442b. We are a civilian operation under Earth colonial protection. What is the nature of your inspection? We have detected unusual energy signatures from your station, Admiral Kelrin replied. Our intelligence suggests you may be harboring illegal technology or weapons. Surrender now and your crew will not be harmed. In his quarters, Do-yun felt his heart racing as he listened to the exchange. Hanyul had grown to nearly the size of a small shuttle and was coiled around his workshop, scales shimmering with nervous energy. The dragon could sense the approaching danger through the station's computer networks. They're coming for you, aren't they? Do-yun whispered to his companion. Hanyul responded with a wave of protective determination. Images flowed into Do-yun's mind, showing the dragon's willingness to fight to protect the station and everyone on it. But Do-yun also sensed something else, a deeper knowledge that Hanyul was only beginning to understand about itself. Dr. Park Jiwan burst into his quarters without knocking. Do-yun, we have to hide Hanyul. If the Hegemony finds out about its abilities, they'll take it away and probably kill anyone who knows about it. Where can we hide something this size? Do-Yan asked, looking at Haniel's impressive form. Before Ji-won could answer, Security Chief Cho Sun-hee appeared in the doorway with 2 station security guards. Her face was grim but determined. "So this is what's been causing all the improvements to our systems," she said, staring at Haniel in amazement. "Commander Lee needs to know about this immediately." "Sun-hee, please," Do-Yan started, but she held up her hand. "I'm not going to report this to the hegemony," she said firmly, "but we need to coordinate our response. This creature might be the only thing that can save us." Explosions echoed through the station as hegemony boarding craft attached to the outer airlocks. Through the communication system, they could hear Admiral Kelron's forces moving through the corridors, searching room by room. Commander Lee's voice came over the intercom. "All personnel, remain calm and cooperate with our visitors. Do not resist." But Technician Yujisu had other plans. From her position in the computer center, she began locking down systems and creating false readings to confuse the invaders. Navigation Officer Shin Jae-in quietly activated the station's emergency protocols, sealing critical areas and preparing defensive measures. In Do-Yan's quarters, something extraordinary began to happen. Haniel's scales started to glow with a brilliant blue-white light, and the dragon's consciousness suddenly expanded beyond its physical form. Do-Yan felt the expansion through their mental link, as if Haniel was reaching out to touch every computer, every sensor, every electronic system on the station. "What's happening?" Ji-won whispered, her instruments going crazy with readings. Do-Yan closed his eyes and let himself merge more deeply with Haniel's expanding awareness. Through the dragon's senses, he could perceive the entire station as a living network. He could see the hegemony soldiers moving through the corridors, could feel their weapons and armor as distinct electronic signatures. "Haniel is connecting with the station," Do-Yan said in wonder. "It's not just interfacing with our technology anymore. It's becoming part of it." The first group of Thrakari soldiers reached their section of the station. These warriors were tall and powerfully built, with thick armor and energy weapons that could cut through metal like paper. They moved with military precision, checking each room systematically. "End of the corridor," Sun-hee reported, watching her security monitors. "They'll be here in 2 minutes." Haniel's glow intensified, and suddenly Do-Yan understood what was about to happen. The dragon was not just connecting with the station's computers. It was preparing to transform the entire structure into something new, something that had not existed in the galaxy for thousands of years. "Everyone hold on to something," Do-Yan warned, though he was not sure why he said it. The transformation began at the molecular level. The station's metal hull started to shift and change, taking on organic curves and patterns that resembled dragon scales. The mining equipment reconfigured itself into weapons and defensive systems that followed designs buried deep in Haniel's genetic memory. Through the expanding network of the transformed station, Do-Yan could sense everything. He felt the Thrakari soldiers' confusion as the walls around them began to change. He perceived their fear as doors sealed shut and new passages opened in impossible directions. Admiral Kelron's voice came over the communication system. But now it carried a note of panic. "What is happening to this station?" "Report? Sir, the structure is changing," came a soldier's reply. "The walls are moving and our equipment is malfunctioning." Commander Lee, Dr. Ji-won, and the other station personnel watched in amazement as their simple mining platform transformed into something that looked like it belonged in an ancient legend. The industrial corridors became graceful curves that seemed to flow like water frozen in time, but the most incredible change was in the station's capabilities. Defensive systems that had never existed before came online, powered by technology that seemed to bend the laws of physics. When the hegemony ships opened fire, expecting to destroy a helpless civilian station, they instead faced weapons that could slice through their heavy armor with beams of pure energy. Haniel's consciousness had merged completely with the station's systems, but the dragon's personality remained connected to Do-Yan. Through their bond, the old engineer found himself able to coordinate the station's defenses with thought-speed precision. "Do-Yan, Juwan said in amazement. "Your brain activity is off the charts. It's like you're connected to a massive computer." "Network, not a computer," Do-Yun replied, his eyes still closed as he guided the station's new weapons. "Something much more than that." The battle was brief but decisive. The hegemony cruisers designed to overwhelm civilian targets were no match for weapons that seemed to anticipate their every move. Admiral Kelran watched in horror as his ships were disabled one by one, their crews unharmed but their vessels completely powerless. As the transformation completed, Haniel's glow began to fade, but the changes to the station remained. The dragon was now part of the structure itself, its consciousness distributed throughout every system while maintaining its individual personality and its special bond with Do-Yun. "This is impossible," Admiral Kelran transmitted. "No known technology can do what we just witnessed." Commander Lee, now standing in a control center that looked more like a living organism than a machine, responded with quiet confidence. "Admiral, you are addressing the crew of a vessel that your databases don't recognize. I suggest you withdraw before we decide you're a threat." Through the station's enhanced sensors, they detected something that made everyone pause. Across the galaxy, other energy signatures were beginning to respond to Haniel's transformation. Ancient signals that had been silent for millennia were suddenly active again. "What does this mean?" Sunny asked, studying the readings. Do-Yun, still connected to Haniel's vast consciousness, felt a wave of recognition and ancient joy from his companion. "It means Haniel is not alone," he said softly. "There are others and they're waking up." "Admiral." Kelran's retreating fleet carried with it news that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. The age of the dragons was beginning again, and this time they had human partners. The mining station that had once been a simple industrial platform was now the first ship in what would become the most powerful fleet the galaxy had ever seen. But for Do-Yun, sitting in his transformed workshop with Haniel's presence warm in his mind, the most important thing was that his friend was safe and happy. Everything else would come in time. News of the impossible victory at Kepler 442 be spread across the galaxy faster than the speed of light itself. Admiral Vos Kelran's damaged fleet limped back to hegemony, space-carrying reports that their military commanders refused to believe. A simple mining station had transformed into a technological marvel that defeated 6 heavy cruisers and a dreadnought. Without destroying a single ship or killing a single crew member, the transformed station floated in space like a living creature, made of metal and light. Its hull had taken on the elegant curves of a dragon's body, with sensor arrays that looked like scales and weapon ports that resembled eyes. Inside, the corridors flowed like rivers, and the control rooms felt more like organs in a vast living being than traditional spacecraft compartments. Do-Yun stood in what had once been his workshop, now transformed into a neural center where he could feel every part of the station through his connection with Haniel. The dragon's consciousness was everywhere, but its personality remained focused in this room, manifesting as patterns of light that danced through the air around him. "Are you still you?" Do-Yun asked his friend. Haniel's response came as a warm feeling of amusement and love. The dragon was more than it had been before, but at its core, it was still the curious creature that had emerged from an egg. In an old engineer's workshop, Dr. Park Ji-won entered the neural center, her portable scanner beeping constantly as it tried to make sense of the readings around her. "Do-Yun, the energy patterns coming from this room are unlike anything in our scientific databases. It's like Haniel has become a living computer that can process information at quantum speeds." "More than that," Do-Yun replied, his eyes closed as he felt Haniel's vast awareness. "Haniel can see things across space and time. The dragon is showing me signals from all over the galaxy." Through Haniel's enhanced senses, Do-Yun could perceive other awakening presences scattered across known space. On a frozen moon orbiting the gas giant Kepler 186, a mining crew led by engineer No Yamin had discovered an egg similar to the one Do-Yun had found. On the research vessel Harmony, traveling between star systems, scientist Hanyura had been studying what she thought was an unusual asteroid when it cracked open to reveal a dragon hatchling. "Commander," Li Hyunwoo called an emergency meeting. In the transformed control center, the room now resembled a cathedral more than a command bridge, with walls that curved upward and displays that floated in the air like holographic windows. "We need to understand what we're dealing with, Commander," Lee said to the assembled crew. "Our communications officer Kim Tae-young has been receiving messages from across human space. It seems we're not the only ones who have encountered these creatures." Technician Yu Jisu pulled up a galactic map showing dozens of energy signatures. That matched Haniel's pattern. "These readings started appearing right after our transformation," she reported. "It's like our dragon's awakening triggered something in others." Security Chief Cho Sun-hee looked worried. If Admiral Kelron was telling the truth about hegemony intelligence, they've been tracking these energy signatures for some time. They probably know where all these awakenings are happening. Navigation Officer Shin Jae-in confirmed her fears. "Long-range sensors are detecting massive fleet movements throughout hegemony space. They're mobilizing everything they have." In his neural connection with Haniel, Do-yeon felt a wave of ancient sadness mixed with determination. The dragon was sharing memories that belonged to its entire species, showing him glimpses of a time long ago when creatures like Haniel had worked alongside other intelligent beings to explore and protect the galaxy. "They were guardians," Do-yeon said aloud, opening his eyes to look at his crewmates. "Haniel's people weren't conquerors. They were protectors who bonded with other species to keep the peace between worlds." "What happened to them?" Dr. Ji-won asked. Do-yeon felt Haniel's grief as the dragon shared the memory of a great sacrifice. They gave up their physical forms to prevent a war that would have destroyed the galaxy. They scattered their essence across space and time, waiting for the right moment to return, and that moment is now? Commander Lee asked. Before Do-yeon could answer, alerts began sounding throughout the station. The transformed mining platform sensors had detected incoming ships, but these were not hegemony vessels. 3 human cargo freighters were approaching, their hulls showing the elegant transformations that indicated they now carried awakened dragons. The first ship to dock was the transport vessel New Bisan, commanded by Engineer No Yamin. The man who stepped through the airlock looked exhausted but amazed. Behind him floated a dragon that had bonded with his ship's systems, its consciousness visible as streams of light flowing through the corridor walls. "I thought I was going crazy," Yamin said as he greeted Do-yeon. 3 weeks ago, I found an egg in an asteroid field. Now my cargo ship can travel faster than light without using its engine, and I can see through space itself." The dragon that had bonded with Yamin's ship communicated with Haniel through harmonics that made the station's hull sing like a musical instrument. Do-yeon felt his friend's joy at finding others of its kind, along with something else, recognition. They remember each other, Do-yeon realized. These dragons were connected before they went into hiding. Dr. Han Yura arrived next aboard the research vessel Harmony. Her ship had undergone an even more dramatic transformation. Its scientific equipment evolved into sensors that could detect life forms across entire star systems. The dragon she had bonded with was smaller than Haniel but radiated an intelligence focused on healing and growth. "The possibilities are incredible," Yura explained to the assembled group. "My dragon can accelerate plant growth, purify atmosphere, even heal damaged ecosystems. We stopped at 3 dead worlds on our way here and restored them to life in a matter of hours." The third ship brought the most surprising visitor of all, Captain Song Min-ho of the Earth Defense. Fleet had been conducting patrol missions near the galactic rim when his crew discovered a dragon egg floating in the wreckage of an ancient starship. The military vessel that now docked at the station looked more like a work of art than a warship, its weapons designed to disable rather than destroy. "Admiral Chun sent me to investigate the reports from this sector," Captain Song explained. "But that was before my ship became something I don't have words to describe." Through the growing network of connected dragons, Do-yeon began to understand the true scope of what was happening. The awakening creatures were not just random events. They were part of a coordinated response to a growing threat that the dragon's ancient wisdom had detected. "The hegemony is just the beginning," Do-yun told the assembled captains and crew members. Haniel is showing me visions of something worse coming from outside our galaxy. The dragons are waking up because we're going to need them. Dr. Jiwan's readings confirmed what Do-yun was sensing. The energy patterns from all our dragons are synchronizing, she reported. It's like they're preparing for something massive. As if summoned by her words, Admiral Kelron's voice crackled over the communication system, but this time he was not alone. The transmission carried the authority of the Supreme Hegemony Council, representing dozens of militaristic species united by their fear of the awakening dragons. "Attention human vessels," came the transmission. "You are harboring weapons of mass destruction that threaten the stability of galactic civilization. Surrender the creatures immediately or face the combined might of the Hegemony Alliance." Through the station's enhanced sensors, they could see the approaching fleet. It was larger than anything in recorded history, with ships from every major military power in the galaxy. Thousands of vessels were moving toward their position, carrying weapons capable of destroying entire star systems. Commander Lee looked at the display with grim determination. "How long until they arrive?" 18 hours, Navigation Officer Jayan replied. Do-yun felt Haniel's calm confidence flowing through their connection. The dragon was not afraid of the approaching fleet. Instead, it was eager to show the galaxy what humans and dragons could accomplish when they worked together. "We're not running," Do-yun announced to the group, "and we're not hiding. It's time to show them that the age of conquest is over." The awakened dragons and their human partners began to prepare for a confrontation that would determine the future of galactic civilization, but they would not be facing it alone. Across space, more eggs were hatching, more ships were transforming, and more bonds were forming between humans and the ancient guardians who had returned to protect the galaxy once again. Word of the impossible events at Kepler 442b reached Earth faster than anyone expected. Captain Song Minho had transmitted a full report to Admiral Chun before his ship completed its transformation, and within hours, the highest levels of human government were demanding answers. President Kim Soyan called an emergency session of the Colonial Council, while Director Bae Suzy of the Outer Rim Administration began mobilizing every available ship. The first official delegation arrived 12 hours before the Hegemony fleet was due to reach the station. Admiral Chun himself led 3 heavy cruisers and a diplomatic vessel carrying representatives from Earth, Mars, and the major colony worlds. What they found waiting for them challenged everything they thought they knew about human capabilities in space. The transformed station hung in space like a living constellation, its dragon-shaped hull pulsing with soft light. Around it, 3 other transformed ships moved in perfect coordination, as if they were part of a single organism. When Admiral Chun's fleet approached, the dragon ships responded with welcoming signals that bypassed all normal communication protocols and spoke directly to the human. Cruise minds, Admiral Chun, a veteran of 30 years in space, had never experienced anything like the gentle touch of dragon consciousness. Through the mental link, he felt no threat, only an overwhelming sense of protection and ancient wisdom. The feeling was so profound that several of his crew members began crying without knowing why. "This is Admiral Chun of the Earth Defense. Fleet requesting permission to dock," he transmitted, his voice shaking slightly. Do-yun's voice came back immediately, calm and confident. "Permission granted, Admiral. Welcome to the first ship of what I suspect will become a very different kind of fleet." When Admiral Chun stepped aboard the transformed station, he found himself in corridors that seemed to breathe with life. The walls curved in patterns that reminded him of ocean waves, and the lighting responded to his presence, growing brighter as he passed. Dr. Park Ji-won met him at the airlock and led him through passages that felt more like moving through a living creature than walking through a spacecraft. "The dragon's consciousness is integrated into every system," Ji-won explained as they walked. "It's not just controlling the ship, it has become the ship." They found Do-yun in the neural center, standing in streams of light that flowed around him like liquid starfire. The old engineer looked exactly the same as always, but there was something different in his eyes, a depth that spoke of connection to something vast and ancient. Admiral Chun, Do-yun said with a smile. I'm glad you came personally. There are things you need to understand before the hegemony arrives. My government is calling this the most significant development in human history, Admiral Chun replied. They want to know if this technology can be replicated. It's not technology, Do-yun said gently. It's partnership. The dragons choose their companions. We can't force these bonds or mass-produce them. Through Haniel's expanded consciousness, Do-yun showed Admiral Chun visions of the approaching hegemony fleet. Thousands of ships from dozens of species, all united by fear of what the awakened dragons might mean for their established order. The fleet was massive enough to conquer entire star systems, and its commanders had orders to destroy anything they could not capture. They're afraid, Do-yun explained. For centuries, the various military powers have maintained control through superior firepower. Now they're facing something that makes their weapons obsolete. Engineer Nonmin joined them in the neural center, his eyes still wide with wonder at the transformations he had witnessed. Sir, my ship can travel between star systems in minutes instead of days. We can communicate instantly across any distance. And the defensive capabilities are beyond anything in our databases. Dr. Han Yura arrived with equally amazing reports. Admiral, we've restored 3 dead worlds to full ecological health in less than a day. The potential for terraforming and environmental restoration is incredible. We could make the entire galaxy habitable. But it was Captain Song Minho's report that made Admiral Chun truly understand the scope of the change. Sir, my ship's dragon has been showing me tactical possibilities that I never imagined. We can disable enemy vessels without harming their crews. We can project defensive shields around entire planets. This isn't just about better weapons. It's about ending the need for war itself. As the hours passed, more human ships arrived at the station. Freight captains who had discovered dragon eggs in asteroid fields, survey teams whose explorations had led them to ancient hatching sites, even passenger liners whose crew had rescued dragons from derelict spacecraft. Each ship that arrived had undergone the same beautiful transformation, and each captain reported the same profound sense of partnership with their dragon companion, Director. Bei Suzy of the Outer Rim Administration was amazed by what she witnessed. In my 40 years of colonial service, I've never seen anything that could unite human space like this, she told Do-yun. These dragons aren't just changing our ships, they're changing us. She was right. The humans who had bonded with dragons showed improved reflexes, enhanced intuition, and an ability to work together that seemed almost telepathic. They moved with a coordination that individual crews could never achieve, guided by the ancient wisdom of their dragon partners, but the most important change was in their attitudes. Captain after captain reported the same thing. Their dragons radiated a deep love for all forms of life and an absolute commitment to protection rather than conquest. The partnerships were changing human nature itself, making them more cooperative, more compassionate, and more focused on building rather than destroying. The dragons remember what the galaxy was like before the age of constant warfare, Do-yun explained to the assembled leaders. They want to bring back that time of peace and exploration. Admiral Chun looked at the tactical displays showing the approaching hegemony fleet. Can we defeat them? We could destroy them easily, Do-yun replied, but that's not what we're going to do. We're going to show them a better way. Through the network of connected dragons, word began to spread throughout human space. Every colony, every station, every ship received the same message. The age of human expansion through military force was ending. In its place would come an era of growth through cooperation and protection of all sentient life. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Human crews volunteered to search for more dragon eggs, driven by a desire to join this new partnership. Colonial governors began dismantling offensive weapons and focusing on defensive systems. Trade routes that had been disrupted by military conflicts reopened as merchants realized they would be protected by the dragon ships. Even more surprising was the response from non-human species within human space. The peaceful alien communities that had been displaced by various wars began returning, drawn by the promise of protection from the dragons. Refugee populations that had been hiding in remote systems started coming forward, offering their knowledge and skills to the growing alliance. As the final hours counted down before the hegemony fleet's arrival, Do-Yun found himself in command of more than just a single transformed station. Nearly 100 dragon-bonded ships had gathered at Kepler 442b, their crews united by their partnerships with the ancient Guardians. They represented every aspect of human space: merchants, miners, scientists, diplomats, and even some military. Vessels whose crews had chosen cooperation over conquest. "Are you ready for this?" Admiral Chun asked Do-Yun as they watched the approaching enemy fleet on their displays. Do-Yun felt Haniel's calm confidence flowing through their bond, along with something else: anticipation. The dragons were not just prepared to defend themselves and their human partners. They were eager to show the galaxy what could be accomplished when different species chose to work together instead of fighting each other. "We've been ready for this moment for thousands of years," Do-Yun replied. "It's time to end the age of fear and begin the age of cooperation." The hegemony fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect military formation, their weapons charged and their commanders confident of victory. What they found waiting for them would challenge everything they believed about power, strength, and the future of galactic civilization. The hegemony fleet that emerged from hyperspace was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Admiral Voskowron commanded over 10,000 ships representing 43 different species, all united by their fear of the awakened dragons. The massive armada stretched across space like a metal cloud, bristling with weapons capable of destroying entire star systems. Facing them was a small fleet of barely 100 dragon-bonded ships, led by a simple mining station that had been transformed beyond recognition. To any military observer, the outcome seemed obvious. The hegemony force outnumbered the human-dragon alliance by more than 100 to 1, but Do-Yun, standing in the neural center of his transformed station, felt no fear. Through his bond with Haniel, he could sense the quiet confidence of every dragon in their small fleet. These ancient beings had waited thousands of years for this moment, and they were ready to show the galaxy what true strength looked like. "All ships, this is Admiral Kelron," came the transmission from the hegemony fleet. "You are harboring illegal weapons that threaten galactic stability. Surrender the creatures immediately, and your crews will be spared." Do-Yun activated the communication system, his voice carrying across space to reach not just the hegemony fleet, but monitoring stations throughout the galaxy. "Admiral Kelron, this is Engineer Kong Do-Yun. We have no weapons here, only partners, and we're not surrendering to anyone." "You have 30 seconds to comply," Admiral Kelron replied, "or we will open fire with enough force to turn your entire fleet into dust. Then you'll have to live with the consequences of that choice," Do-Yun said calmly. The hegemony fleet opened fire with everything they had. Energy beams that could vaporize mountains, missiles that could crack planets, and plasma cannons that burned at the temperature of stars all converged on the small human dragon fleet. The display was so overwhelming that sensors throughout the sector overloaded trying to measure the energy release. But when the light faded, the dragon ships remained unharmed. Each vessel was surrounded by a shimmering barrier that absorbed the incoming energy and converted it into harmless light. The dragons had not even bothered to fire back. "Impossible," Admiral Kelron whispered, staring at his tactical displays. "Nothing can withstand that much firepower." Engineer No-Yamin's voice came across the communication channel, calm and educational. "Admiral, you're thinking about this wrong. You're trying to destroy something, but we're focused on protecting everything. The dragons taught us that defense will always be stronger than offense when it's powered by the desire to preserve life." Dr. Hanura added her own observation. "Our ships aren't just protected by energy shields, Admiral. They're protected by the fundamental forces that hold the universe together. The dragons learned long ago how to work with those forces instead of fighting against them." Admiral Kelron ordered a second barrage, this time focusing all his firepower on a single target, Do-Yun's station. The concentrated fire was enough to destroy a small moon, but the station absorbed the energy just as easily as before. In fact, the attack seemed to make the dragon ship glow brighter, as if it was feeding on the hostile energy. "Your weapons are making us stronger," Captain Song Minho explained through the communication link. "Every shot you fire gives our dragons more energy to work with. You're literally powering our defenses with your aggression." The futility of the attack was becoming clear to the hegemony crews, but Admiral Kelrin was not ready to give up. He activated a weapon that his fleet had hoped never to use, an ancient device discovered in the galactic core that could destabilize the fundamental forces holding matter together. "If we cannot capture these creatures," Admiral Kelrin announced, "then we will ensure they can never threaten galactic order again." The weapon charged slowly, drawing energy from the cores of the hegemony ships. When it fired, it would create a cascade reaction that would destroy everything within several light years, including both fleets. Admiral Kelrin was willing to sacrifice his own forces to eliminate what he saw as an existential threat. Through the Dragon Network, Do-Yun felt Haniel's sudden alarm. This weapon was something the ancient dragons remembered from their own past, a technology so dangerous that its use had contributed to the decision to go into hiding thousands of years ago. "They're activating a reality destabilizer," Do-Yun announced to his fleet. "If that weapon fires, it will destroy everything in this sector. Can we stop it?" Admiral Chun asked from his position aboard one of the Earth Defense Fleet ships. "Not stop it," Do-Yun replied, feeling the Dragon's collective response through the network. "Transform it." The Dragon fleet moved as one, their consciousness linking across space to focus on the charging weapon. Instead of trying to destroy the device or block its energy, they began to change its fundamental nature. The weapon that had been designed to unmake matter was slowly converted into something completely different. Admiral Kelrin watched in horror as his ultimate weapon transformed before his eyes. The destructive energies that should have torn apart space itself instead began creating something new. The device became a massive terraforming platform, capable of turning dead worlds into gardens of life. "You see, Admiral," Do-Yun said gently, "this is what the dragons have been trying to teach us. Every act of destruction can be turned into an act of creation if you understand how the universe really works." The transformation of the weapon sent shockwaves through the hegemony fleet. Crews that had been willing to die for their cause suddenly found themselves questioning what they were fighting for. If their enemies could turn their most powerful weapon into a tool for creating life, what did that say about the nature of power itself? One by one, ships began breaking away from the hegemony formation. First, it was the smaller vessels whose crews had never been fully committed to the military alliance. Then larger ships began to withdraw, their captains refusing to continue. An attack that seemed increasingly pointless. Admiral Kelrin found himself commanding a shrinking force as more and more of his ships chose to disengage. Even his own crew was beginning to question the wisdom of continuing the battle. "This is not over," Admiral Kelrin transmitted, his voice filled with frustrated rage. "The hegemony will never accept dragon dominance over the galaxy." "We're not seeking dominance," Do-Yun replied. "We're offering partnership. The dragons want to work with all species, not rule over them. They've been waiting thousands of years for the galaxy to be ready for that kind of cooperation." As if to prove his point, Haniel's consciousness reached out to the remaining hegemony ships, not with aggression but with the same gentle touch that had first connected with Do-Yun in his workshop. The dragon offered the enemy crews a glimpse of what their civilization could become: worlds restored to life, conflicts resolved through understanding, and technology used to nurture rather than destroy. Many of the hegemony soldiers felt tears on their faces as they experienced the dragon's vision. They had spent their lives fighting endless wars for resources and territory, never imagining that there could be enough abundance for everyone if they simply chose to work together. Admiral Kelrin, however, remained unmoved by the dragon's offer of peace. He ordered his remaining loyal ships to retreat, vowing to return with an even larger force. But as his fleet jumped into hyperspace, many of his officers were already planning to request transfers to non-military positions. In the aftermath of the battle, the galaxy began to change in ways that no one had expected. The dragon ships spread out across known space, not as conquerors but as helpers. They assisted with medical emergencies, restored damaged ecosystems, and provided protection for trade routes that had been disrupted by piracy, the terraforming platform that had once been a weapon of mass destruction was put to immediate use, beginning the process of creating new habitable worlds for the billions of refugees who had been displaced by centuries of warfare. The project became a symbol of the new era, tools of destruction, transformed into instruments of creation. Do-Yun found himself in a position he had never wanted or expected. Governments throughout human space began calling him Fleet Admiral, though he still preferred to think of himself as an engineer. Representatives from dozens of species came to meet with him, seeking partnerships with the dragons and inclusion in the growing alliance. "I never wanted to be a leader," Do-Yun confided to Haniel during one of their quiet conversations in the Neural Center. "I just wanted to fix things." Haniel's response carried warmth and gentle amusement. The dragon reminded him that fixing things was exactly what he was doing, just on a much larger scale than either of them had ever imagined. The Galactic Council, which had been paralyzed by conflicts between the various military powers, suddenly found itself able to function again. With the dragons providing protection and mediation, old enemies began talking to each other instead of shooting. Trade agreements replaced military alliances, and exploration missions took priority over conquest fleets. Years later, when historians looked back on this period, they would call it the Great Awakening. But for Do-Yun, sitting in his transformed workshop with Haniel's presence warm in his mind, it was simply the natural result of choosing kindness over fear. He had taken in a lost creature because it was the right thing to do, and that simple